Hello and welcome to the Granstrom Podcast, Super Soul Model Series, where I help people tune and tap into their natural state of well-being. This week, I am speaking to Warren Knight. He's a thought leader, speaker, author, and coach. Warren helps leaders understand how technology drives business. He's an award-winning digital leader, digital transformation leader, top 100 global influencer and tech influencer, and he's an award-winning virtual keynote speaker. He's passionate about transformation. He's passionate about disruption of thinking and technology and how that's going to empower individuals. Welcome this week's Super Soul Model, Warren Knight.
Well, thank you very much, James. And I must say, I'm very, very excited to be here. And I'll tell you why I'm excited, because I've been waiting for this moment, for that message that comes in from you. Hey, Warren, fancy coming on my podcast? So I'm super, super excited to be here.
So Warren's been not only a great friend for the last near 20 years, but he's also helped me as a business coach, and he is really the real deal. And I'm really super excited to really talk about disruption of thinking, transformation, and empowerment, because Warren really does walk his talk. So I just wanted to give a little background, Warren. For people who don't know who you are, who are new to what you do, how did you get into becoming a thought leader, a coach, an author, and how you're helping individuals and businesses thrive?
I think for me, we've had quite a lot of conversations about this, right, James? That there are pivotal moments in your life that you reflect back and you ask yourself, well, what value am I bringing in? Where in my life at the moment is I might be fulfilled in certain ways, but maybe not in other ways. So there are various different life shifts that happen. So I think the biggest life shift for me that happened was around about 2007, where at that point I was working out of China and working with Disney, and I've been doing that for 11 years. And life was great. And I was traveling 30 different countries. And then that moment happens, life shift happens, and it moves me into this technology space. So around about 2007, I started to use internet marketing and social media at that time, and thinking about how this digital technology, this World Wide Web that we've got, will enable people to be able to share their thoughts, their ideas, their passions, their businesses, their products, their services, whatever it might be. And so I really started to dig deep in that particular environment. And I traveled over to America. I learned from some of the best globally around the world. And then I sat down, just like we have done many times, with another good friend of ours, a friend called Carl. And I sat down with Carl, and I'll never forget it. It was a beautiful sunny day. We were sitting outside of a coffee shop, and I had my leather-bound notebook, making a point of, right, if I'm going to write something in this, then I'm going to take action on it. And so I said to Carl, that's where I was. This is where I want to be, and this is where I want to go. What do I need to do? And Carl reeled off like this list. Right, you need to become a keynote speaker, thought leadership. Really dig deep and be a thought leader in a niche market, and then you can expand out. And so there were lots of kind of moments for me then that have taken me on a journey for well over the last 15 years of working with my own business coaches, my own speaker coaches, my own training coaches, and working with a group of individuals in masterminding sessions who are far better than me to be able to learn from them. And that's become pretty much part of my DNA now. It's a habit that I just wake up in the morning and just do. It's not something that I need to think about anymore. It's just become part of my DNA. Excellent. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. I think what we're going to find throughout this conversation, what we're going to try to adduce from Warren today and how it's going to help the audience is just to really understand your thinking, because you think differently than a lot of people. And I love looking at slogans like Steve Jobs, whose idea behind Apple was to think differently. And what I know about Warren is that he really is pretty cutting edge. As soon as something comes out, he's bought it. As soon as you see those virtual headsets, he's already got the first one that was made. He's got like version 1. And then as soon as the first iPhone is out, he's already queued, or he knows someone who can get that, and he's got it before it comes out, just so that he's first to understand what this new technology is. And it's the same with our health and well-being. He really wants to understand human beings. This is what I know of Warren personally. He wants to understand what makes him tick. And so when he understands what makes him tick, how he can help other people too. And he does that not only with businesses, and has done it, successfully with multi-million-pound global companies and multi-million-dollar companies, but he also does it with his family as well. He's a family man, and he brings up him and his beloved wife Zoe. They bring up their kids just a bit differently as well, because he's always wanting to be cutting edge, disrupting what people think is the norm, because there's a new way to empower people. So I just wanted to ask this question, Warren. So what made you wanting to start thinking differently, turning up different in your life? What is actually driving you behind this sort of everyday life to want to be on that leading edge? Because it's quite a lonely place being on a leading edge sometimes, when you're thinking differently and waiting for the whole world to catch up. Social media really didn't start kicking off till 2007, but you saw it pretty early. I remember joining Facebook in 2007 thinking, oh, this is interesting. And the social network, they're talking about it in Harvard in the year 2006. But you were already starting to say there's something in this, and then starting to find ways about how this could improve the quality of life and the quality of business. And Instagram didn't really get going till 2010, did it? So
No.
And here we are in 2023, and you're starting to see these platforms evolve and change, and it just keeps evolving and changing, and new things starting arriving. So what's driving your mindset? What's driving you to wanting to be on this cutting edge or this leading edge, and then hopefully empowering companies and individuals?
I'm going to put it into two words for you. And it took me quite a while to really understand why I do what I do and how I achieve the outcomes that I achieve. And it just really comes down to these two words: everyday transformation. And as you mentioned, it doesn't matter whether it's in my personal life, or it doesn't matter whether it's in my business life. So just to give you put a bit of context around that, I was over in Saudi Arabia and delivering a talk, and part of my journey over there was about being a hologram and talking to an audience of people. And then when I finished being a hologram over in Saudi Arabia, I come back home and I jump in my ice bath, with my girls running around me with little rubber duckies while I'm sitting in this 2 degrees water, and just resetting my body from being a hologram through to being in an ice bath. And for me, that's an everyday transformation. If we're looking at what's happening and what's out there in the future, and what are those opportunities, are we allowing barriers to stop us from doing that? Whether it's a mindset shift thing, or whether it's a location thing, I really don't know. But for me, I like to try and think about these barriers and just remove them and look at opportunities. So how can I be a hologram one day and jump in a nice bath the next day?
Well, I mean, we live in interesting times that we can
We
be a
do.
hologram. I remember thinking about that V&A thing, and with Kate Moss doing a runway, and David
Yeah.
Bowie having like a concert, and now ABBA have the concert, don't they? And then now you can deliver keynotes and be a hologram. But what I want to know, because I feel like you're a bit of a future thinker. You think way beyond what is, and it's like sometimes the world has to catch up with Warren's vision.
Sure.
And that can be quite tricky for some people, and it requires an incredible amount of patience. But these are what visionaries do. Visionaries see beyond the status quo. Visionaries will see beyond what is, and hopefully create, or at least pave the way for a better future for other people. And I find that you are definitely one of those when it comes to helping businesses and also running a family.
Yeah.
I see that in myself as well, in wanting to help people enjoy greater happiness, health, and well-being.
Definitely.
But you do it in such a way with your family as well. I mean, I know you and Zoe bring up your little girls, who are 6 and 4 now, in
Correct.
in
Yeah,
in, in perhaps a different way than other people would.
we do.
But you had a discussion with me, which is like about a month ago, and I was literally blown away. And I said, right, this is This is the straw that breaks the camel's back. He's got to come on the show and tell this story. What are you doing with the way you're bringing up your family? Because our well-being is based upon the way we think, the way we feel, our relationships, our health. And the way you lead companies is beautiful and wholesome and empowering and transformative. And the way that you lead your family with your wife is beautiful, wholesome, empowering, and transforming. So you're taking everything that you do in business with you and your wife to be able to bring up these kids who are such a young age and have this impeccable confidence at such a young age. And it's unusual for a 4-year-old or yet alone a 6-year-old to hold conversations the way they do. It seems like, what planet are they from? And it's just,
Yeah.
it's the environment that you cultivate. So I'm just really intrigued for the audience, and I'm intrigued as a friend. Just what are you doing there?
Okay.
What are your values? What's actually happening here?
I mean, it's a huge values at play, right? You mentioned kind of work and business. For me, it's always about that confidence. And with organizations that I work with, it's about the upskilling and the tools and the process and the frameworks and looking at the data but giving them the confidence to know that they can do that, where they're going to learn fast and fail, right? Sometimes, and that's okay, because then we can pick ourselves up again. And I'm going to come back probably to where we're about 2017 now, when I lost one of my technology companies and I had to put it into liquidation, and it was a really painful journey that I went on. But that then was another pivotal moment for me to look at my life and realize, what do I want from my life? And so then I decided to go on a dating app, and I was very transparent on that dating app. What is it that I want? I want to get married and I want to have kids. And after that conversation was being had, I got told when I was 30 years old, I could never have kids. So if you want to be with me for the rest of our lives together, we're going to have to go on a journey. And it was a beautiful sunny day in Muswell Hill. And I sat down with Zoe, my now wife, and we just made a decision in that moment that Zoe and I were going to commit our lives, and more Zoe than me, because she had to give up her business and give up everything that she knew to be able to come on this journey of going through 3 rounds of fertility treatment to get Dixie, our now 6-year-old. And it was months and months and months of a journey that we went on, lots of highs and lots of lows. And we discussed in that moment, if we're going to go on this journey and grow as people, then our journey of growth and being disruptive and not accepting that barrier, as I did when I was 30, to say that I couldn't have any children, and just go, right, we're going to bring up our children in a very different way. We are not going to send our children to school. We are not going to stick to a school curriculum. Because of the educational space that I'm in, and watching how different industries and educations and governments are shifting from one environment into another environment at the moment, which is very much being human-centric and sustainable. The system at which children are taught at the moment, from our perspective, when Zoe knew the type of work that I do and how I work with these organizations, and they are trying to find ways of how to protect themselves to be fit for the future. And the way that they do that is to come up with new titles for people to work in an organization. So a new title that's come out over the last couple of months because of ChatGPT and generative AI is a prompt engineer, somebody who knows how to talk to AI to get the outcome that's needed based on what the goals are. So a prompt engineer. Now, this is something that I'd never heard of when we first had our children. So we realized that at the speed at which technology and the world is moving, that for our children to be strong enough and have the confidence and to be healthy, happy, and strong in this world that we live in right now, not knowing what their job role might be, because their jobs haven't even been written yet, right? Prompt engineers just come out the last couple of months. So who knows what the next 15 years are going to bring for my girls. So we decided in that moment, sitting on that bench in Muswell Hill with the sun shining down on us. I think I was drinking a pint of beer and Zoe had already started just on the orange juices. And we just decided that if we're going to go on this journey of fertility treatment and getting married, that whatever decision that whatever happens with our children, we are going to be as much as we can in control of what their future looks like. And so that was a pretty big reason to the why that we home educate our children. We don't homeschool, we home educate our children.
There's a little magic actually, because with the success of Dixie came Blossom. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, whilst Dixie was 3 rounds of fertility treatment,
This is given that at the age of 30, you were told you couldn't have kids.
Could never have children. So I knew that if I was going to go down that journey, which is why I was very transparent in the dating app. And then when Zoe and I met, actually within the first about 30 minutes, we pretty much knew we were going to marry each other. The first phone call we ever had, and we reflect back on it and we laugh about it, because our values were so aligned in those 30 minutes. And so when Dixie came along, obviously we became a mum and a dad, and it was incredible. And we decided to move out of London, where I've been for 25 years, move up to the countryside near where there's family around us. And then one day I made her a cup of tea, and she went to go and drink the tea, and she smelt the tea and she was like, "Oh, that makes me feel sick." And I just looked at her and I just went, "Zoe, that's exactly what it used to do to you when you were pregnant with Dixie. Please, no, don't, because this is going to disrupt our family, our little trio."
Yeah.
So it did. Blossom came along completely naturally. We found out we were pregnant, and the way that I look at this, it was buy one, get one free. And Blossom came along completely naturally, and she really it made a huge. Dixie clearly wanted another sister, to be in her. Dixie was actually a twin, so Dixie was a twin when we first found out that we were pregnant, and then we lost the twin. So I reckon Dixie had different ideas, and she was like, "You know what? I want a sister to come along." So along came Blossom. Completely naturally, which again was a massive surprise to both of us, right?
Yeah.
But when the stars are aligned and the energy's there and it just feels right, magic happens.
And that is magic, and this stuff does happen, and this happened to you and Zoe. And I remember receiving a phone call from you going, "We're pregnant again." And I remember what you and Zoe had been through, especially Zoe. I mean, it was flipping hard.
Yeah.
But one thing I know about energy, and that's for sure, is that when you don't need something, it just turns up with ease. And the success of having that beautiful little daughter Dixie, and the joy of it just brought more joy in. And I think that your whole journey has been been given a disruption, chaos, and finding a way to make peace with that all, and finding a way to empower other people in the process, because it can't have been easy when you were 30 to hear that news.
No, it wasn't. I think what was I 49? I think it was when we had Blossom.
Yeah.
So hearing that news at the age of 48 again was a big surprise.
Yeah. So I mean, it's incredible, and so like you're actually starting to bring them up as little leaders in your own way. And I know to a certain extent, families are always trying to do that, but you are really conscious about bringing them into being not only confident, self-empowered, but leaders in their own right. And they're only 4 and 6, and it sounds like that's a bit of a big ask, but you're not actually pushing responsibility, very tough responsibility. You're starting to dilute some real wisdom with them, which is showing up in how they're connecting with adults. And if you'd be so kind, why don't you share with the audience the sort of conversations you have with your 6-year-old? Because they're quite magical.
I'll give you a great example. So this morning, my mum's staying with us at the moment. So we're all sitting around and we're having breakfast this morning. and the table, our table was leaning slightly, and there was something on the table that you could clearly see that it was on a bit of a lean. There was a bit of an angle going on. And Dixie said, hold on a minute, I'm going to hypothesize to the reasons why this table is that this is happening to the table. She said, I think because of the weight of all the plates and everybody leaning on the table, that my hypothesis is that that's the reason why that it's leaning slightly. And then Blossom said, hold on a minute, I'm going to hypothesize to another reason.
Blossom's 4. Blossom is
Blossom's
4.
4, right? She's 4 years old. So I'm going to hypothesize a different reason why. And I can't remember, honestly, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head that she said. And Dixie went, Blossom, actually, I think you're right. I think what we should do is we should take both of our hypothesis, and put them together. And I'm going to create a sentence that then actually explains the reasons why this table is doing what it's doing at the moment. And she took what Blossom said and what she said and created a narrative around it and said to us, there's the answer.
And so this is what you deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Day-to-day
and for some parents, they could be talking about what's happening with, Peppa Pig or whatever it is. And you're getting hypotheses about the weight ratio of a table and whether it's in equilibrium or not, with perhaps a little bit more detailed vocabulary. But obviously they're picking up on the vibes and the language that you use at home.
Correct.
I'm just really fascinated because, one of my sort of passions is trying to empower the next generation, because these are the leaders that are going to be looking after us one day. And for me, it's so important that I fast forward with a little morbid thinking from time to time, and it's only because when my time is done, did I leave this place better than I found it? And I want to leave it way better for the next generation, or generations far better than I found it. And leaving that in the capable hands of the next generation is just so important for me. And maybe I'm thinking differently with this podcast. I'm thinking how can maybe just one story and one insight of something that I have with one person really change a family's life and trajectory, to help them see there's another way of doing things, because there are so many different ways of doing things to get wonderful results. And I feel that with your family, although it's not straightforward, although it's not run of the mill like everybody else is doing, it's working. It's working big time.
It really is. And every day we reflect. Zoe and I have numerous conversations. I even we went to a friend's wedding, and we captured this picture of the four of us. And so I created this book and put on the front of this book, a picture of the four of us, and just wrote, our future and beyond, I think, on the front of the book, and had it created and had it then sent to Zoe. And it's our book, and just to reflect back on everything that we're doing now, and putting some milestones in for things that we want to achieve as a family. And we spend that time together to be able to have those discussions, and we reflect back on the day. And I think some of the huge changes that we've seen happen with our children. I'll give you another quick, for instance, they might be tired. Blossom gets really hangry. She gets angry when she's hungry. And there might be a moment where there'll be a bit of a kick-off between the two of them, and one of them might get upset, or Blossom might fall over because they're running around or something, and they will fall over or they will argue with each other. And literally within the space of a split second, they are laughing and giggling with each other. And one of them's walked over to the other one and put their arms around one and gone, I love you, Dixie, and given her a kiss on the cheek. And then they just go off and do whatever they need to go and do. And one of those conversations that we have with the children is to just let go, not to hold on to things, right? And we do that, as we have done that as adults, and hold on to things with friends and family and whatever, lots of different things. And we literally, with our language and our leading by example with Zoe and I, if that happens for us, we're over there, we're cuddling each other and we're using that language. I love you. Doesn't matter what happens. I'm always here for you. No matter how much you kick off, I'm always going to be here for you. There's just a slight change in language and the way that we lead by example that allows moments like that just to disappear in a split second.
What would you be saying to someone in the audience to help them move into that leadership role? Because you were talking about leading by example. How could you start to lead by example and start to become that person now? Because remember, in 2007, when you were talking about getting your leather-bound book, sitting on the sunshine, having that beer, I think it was, with Carl,
Yes.
maybe I've got that wrong, but you were writing down what you wanted to be. So
Right.
and whilst that wasn't you yet, you were trying to shift identities, and now you're saying it's not a big deal because that's what you're doing. So how would someone right now begin to shift identities and start disrupting those old thought patterns that keep them bound, that keep them stuck, so that they can move into this new version of themselves, which is there, but sometimes people find it very hard to even access or even know where they're going sometimes.
So are we talking about it from somebody that wants children from that perspective,
No,
or just people in general?
I just want to be a bit more general about it, really, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Good question. It just, for me, it comes down to mindset. And I think, so the reason why I now do ice baths is I took myself outside of my comfort zone and I flew to Holland and I spent the weekend with Mr. Wim Hof and made myself on my own be uncomfortable, take myself completely outside of I flew from, I think I was over in Qatar speaking at an event, and I flew to the UK and then I flew off to be with Wim, and those two environments and situations are so different to each other, that
Polar opposite.
polar opposite, and put myself in that really that environment that just allowed me to be uncomfortable, but allowed me to be uncomfortable with people that were also feeling quite uncomfortable. Maybe it wasn't the initial conversation that you'd have with somebody, and then all of a sudden then you realize that there's a common ground with each other. So I think for people at the moment, because there is so much pressure around this mental health environment, I think it's just about taking those baby steps. And for me, I took that baby step of understanding, how can I learn to breathe better, to be stronger? And then how can I put myself into an ice bath that is of 2 degrees and just sit there for 10 minutes and sit next to Wim and talk about life? I would never even dream about doing something like that. And I think for me, that's now given me lots of confidence, even more confidence to go, I could never do that before. So now I'll happily go wild swimming. I'll do things
So
that
what?
I would never.
So just what made you interrupt that pattern of comfortability? Is it having kids, or is it like wanting to live longer? What's the intention of saying I'm going to disrupt those habits that I've got, or disrupt that feeling of, oh, I feel quite comfortable, I'm going to go beyond my comfort zone? Because I've always said to my clients and the people I share with this stuff on the podcast is, until you've had enough pain, you
Yeah.
ain't going to change. And I
Nope,
don't wish
not
you
at all.
pain, but it's only until you've had enough suffering that you're going to go, right, I'm going to actually learn to see what's really inside of me so I can access that, because that's the bit that I really want to access.
Mm.
So what made you want to do that, to sit in that tub next to Wim? Because it's not pleasant sitting in ice cold water for a long period of time.
Doesn't matter
Most
how many
people,
times you do it.
I've done it for 2 years straight, and I have to say I never like it, but I always like how I feel after, but I
Oh,
never like it, always dislike it.
amazing. Amazing. So I think it's, I'm going to come back to what we touched on earlier, that leading by example.
Yeah.
If I can show the people around me, whether it's people that I work with or my family, because then Zoe was a big part in kind of dangling a carrot, if you like. We were sitting there and she was, oh, look, there's some places left to go for you to go and see Wim. Why don't it's your birthday? Come on, why don't you go? And then she said, I'm going to go bed now. Bye. And she left me like hanging, and I was like, do I not? And I did. And in the morning, she said, so did you or didn't you? I said, yes, I did. She was like, awesome. She said, I knew you would. And we looked at it, and all the places were full. So if I hadn't have done it in that moment and procrastinated, which is something that I have done in the past, I would never have got that place. And so it was ultimately leading by example. And you also mentioned that word comfortable. Whenever I've got myself in a position where I'm comfortable, whether it's with work or with a partner, it's kind of festered, that I'm really comfortable here. So why should I bother? And it's always been, I'm not saying it's always been a mindset of mine, but I love being comfortable. And if we're going to lead by example with our girls, and Zoe and I both independently with what we do and together with what we do, I need to step outside of my own comfort zone. And last year for me was the year of looking after myself. So much time looking after other people and being there for other people, whether it's family, organizations, friends, whatever it might be. I forgot about me and I lost me. So I made last year the year to look after me, not in a selfish way, but in a way that would help me be stronger for the people that I've got around me.
Yeah, because unless you recharge your own batteries, you ain't got nothing to give, alas. And we people who do care can sometimes be so giving that they forget about themselves, and that's not what well-being is all about. Well-being means well-roundedness, and so you can't give something from an empty vessel. You need to give something from a full vessel. So are you still doing your ice baths? I guess there's a question. Are you still making yourself uncomfortable?
So we've got the ice bath in the garden there, and I got in yesterday, and I'll be really honest with you, because of all my traveling recently, whilst I do cold showers every day while I'm away, a cold shower over in the Middle East is never a cold shower.
Yeah.
And so I got home, and so I was like, right, come on, you getting in the ice bath? I went, do you know what? Yes, I am. And I got in it, and I only lasted 2 minutes. Whilst I got over it, normally I can deal with the cold in about 30 seconds. It took me about a minute to get control of it before the inside of my body started to warm up. And I lasted about 2 minutes. And I said to myself, actually, 2 minutes is great because you got in. You actually took the time to get in, and you took that moment and you reset your body and reset your mind. And whilst it was only 2 minutes, when I got out of there, I felt awesome. I felt amazing. From the accomplishment of getting into the ice bath, and then how it resets your body. So that was only the other day, but I only lasted a couple of minutes.
Warren, thank you so much. It's been so enjoyable speaking with you in this episode and sharing like your insights about, how you think about things and what you're doing. You're doing amazing things with your family. You're doing amazing things with the companies that you're helping transform. And the best part about it is that you're actually coming from a place of integrity, which is what the world really needs. They need people who are doing what they say that they're going to do. And even though it's uncomfortable, they still do it. And you do that at home and you show your girls and look at them hypothesizing, so we can laugh about that. But there's something here for people to take away. There's something for them to go, where can I make myself uncomfortable if I'm a little too comfortable? Where can I start disrupting patterns if I've gotten too comfortable? And I'm a firm believer that unless you make yourself uncomfortable, you're never going to reach your potential, and you really need to keep stretching yourself. And if it's a cold shower a day, then you're going to be realizing that you're stretching your comfort zone each time, and the colder the better. Obviously, there are different things you can do, and I've discovered and shared other ways you can do things on other podcasts. But just listen to what Warren has said. I hope there's been something in this conversation that has potentially inspired you, the listener, that can make you think, oh, what could I do differently? How could I challenge myself? Because when you
there are two things for me, James, just before you go. And I think that one is the getting outside your comfort zone. That's where the magic happens. And we haven't had much time to talk about it. And I know you're a huge advocate of this, and you've really helped me understand the importance of it. And that's about having an abundance mindset. And I touched on mindset earlier, but the two of those outcomes together, getting outside your comfort zone where the magic happens, and having that abundance mindset. When those two things come together,
Magic.
it's incredible. So that for me is how I'd love to kind of finish up today. So thank you.
Oh, Warren, it's been a real joy, mate. It's been a real joy. I'd love to carry on. Maybe we'll come back and do another episode at another time if you'd
I
be
love that.
interested. It'd be a delight to have you on again, mate. And we'll discuss maybe the abundant mindset businessman.
Sure.
If you haven't heard of Warren, please go and find where can people find you? Just quickly touching base. I'll have some links, but it's always nice to hear it from you.
If you're in the business environment, come and connect with me on LinkedIn. Just type in Warren Knight. Otherwise, just go to Google, type in Warren Knight. I've got my Warren-Knight website. Think Digital First website is more business focused website. I'm on Twitter. So just type in Warren Knight into Google. If you're not quite sure if there are a few Warren Knights, just type digital transformation, and hopefully I should own the whole front page of Google with that.
Happy days. Warren Knight, thanks again. This week's Super Soul Model.